Is my garage a mess? Yeah. Is my wife upset with that? Yes. Will I eventually clean it up? Yeah. Hey everybody, welcome to Salt Life Builds. My name is Drew. I haven't been able to post a video for the last 3 to 4 weeks because I've been busy making things in my garage. Now I've made some cabinets and vanities for some clients of mine, and now I have to make a charcuterie board with matching coasters, and I'm gonna show you how to do that. Now in my opinion, charcuterie boards, coasters, cutting boards, they all are really good starting spots for beginning woodworkers. That's where I started when I got into it. And the reason is because you're just stripping wood to certain sizes, gluing them together, and then finishing them. And so today I'm gonna show you the way I do it. There are 3 things you need to figure out before you start. Number 1, what type of wood you want to use. Number 2, how long you want the board to be. And number 3, how wide you want the board to be. For my particular board, I ended up using maple and walnut wood, and I wanted it to be 22 inches long by 11 inches wide. And so I cut the wood with the miter saw a little bit more than 22 inches, so I had a little wiggle room in the end. Once you have the lengths cut, the next step is to strip the wood to the proper width so that when you glue the pieces together, you get that final width that you were shooting for. If we take a look at my coasters and charcuterie board, I went with an alternating pattern. The accent strips were the same width, and I changed up the widths for the main wood. This is the reason why knowing how wide you want your board to be is extremely important. I wanted mine to be as close to 11 inches as possible, and so this is how I stripped my wood. 1 piece was stripped to 3 inches, 2 pieces were stripped to 2 inches, and 2 pieces were stripped to 1 inch. If you add all of those up, you get 9 inches, but we're not done. I stripped 4 walnut accent pieces to a 1/2 inch each, giving me the 11 inches needed. And for the coasters, the client wanted the XL version, which is a 5.5 by 5.5 square, and finding these widths are actually extremely simple since 5.5 is half of 11. That's kind of why I went with 11 for the width. I just took all the measurements I just gave you and cut them in half. Once everything was stripped, the next step is probably the most important, and that is making sure your wood is perfectly planed. Now you can either use a planer or do it by hand with a sander, but trust me, I learned this the hard way, and there's nothing worse than spending a chunk of time on a handmade board just to see gaps in your wood after a glue up. I used to do all of this with a hand sander, and it is possible to get a really nice tight glue up, but after a while, I was just so sick of it, and I invested in a small planer, and it was life-changing. To glue up, all you gotta do is align the pieces in the pattern that you desire, and then add glue. Clamp it down, and set it aside to dry. Now I'm currently recording all the audio for this video at my in-laws cabin, and if you're someone who really enjoys how-to videos and DIY projects, this channel is all about that. I'm a general contractor who tries to show you how to build things with your own hands and tools that you might just have lying around. And so if that interests you, go ahead, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in some other videos. But let's go ahead and get back into these charcuterie boards. Now here's a pro tip. After about 45 minutes, I like to scrape the drips, and this just makes it so much easier for the sanding process when it comes time. Now before I had a planer, like I said before, I used to sand all these boards down by hand. It is possible, but it takes a really long time, and using a pencil, you have to draw on the face, sand the entire surface down, and continue that process over and over. But with a planer, I can achieve the same result in a fraction of the time. Then once the boards have been planed down, I take them to the table saw, and using my table saw guide, I clean up the edges for the charcuterie board, and I measure out the sizes for the coasters. This next step isn't mandatory, but I believe it takes your build to a whole new level. Using a 45-degree router bit, I remove all the edges of the boards and coasters. Again, it's not essential, but it changes the entire look of your build. If you don't have a router, you can always chamfer the edges with sandpaper. That's what I used to do, and it looks just as good. The final steps are to sand every inch of the board with 120 grit sandpaper, and then go over it again with 220. I apply a small coat of cutting board oil, and I let them sit for about 24 hours before I wake up the next morning and add the hardware to get it ready to be passed off to the buyer. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.